everyone, today we're going to talk about how to find area and perimeter of basic polygons. The most basic polygon that we're going to start with is a square, remember because all sides are equal. Then we go to find the area. That's simply one side times the other, so area is equal to 5 times 5 in this example, which is going to give us 25 square centimeters. And for the perimeter, we're going to add up all the sides together, which is going to be 4 times the side length, in this case, which is 5. So perimeter is equal to 4 times 5, which is 20 centimeters. And for the rectangle, our area, again, is base times height. I'm going to make sure that I write that in there. I know that you guys are familiar with length times width. Base times height is another way of writing it. It's going to make it easier for us when we go into 7th grade. So it's best for us to become familiar with it now. So with base times height, we're going to do 6.4 times 2.7. And I'm going to work this out in my free space over here. You can work it out in the margin of your paper if you need to. But please try to work it out on paper instead of using a calculator, because it will make it easier for you come EOGs to make sure that we remember how to multiply with decimals. So 4 times 7 is going to give us 28. 6 times 7 is 42, plus 2 more is 44. I'm going to put a 0 in as my placeholder. 2 times 4 is 8, and 2 times 6 is 12. So when I go to add all of this together, I'm going to get 17.28 because I have 1 decimal place here, 1 down here, which means at the bottom I have to have 2 decimal places. And my area, wow, is 17.28 square centimeters. Now for perimeter, we're going to add all of our side lengths together. I'm going to start all the way down here just to make it a little bit easier for me to spread out where I'm writing my work. So perimeter is 2 times the base, which is 6.4, plus, let me make sure this is clear that this is parentheses, plus 2 times 2.7. And now I can start to work that out, okay? 6.4 times 2 is going to give me 12.8. 2.7 times 2 is going to give me 5.4. So perimeter is equal to 12.8 plus 5.4. And now if I add that together, that's going to give me 12. 8 and a 1. And so my perimeter is 18.2 centimeters. Okay, so real quick, we'll talk about the area of a triangle. We discussed before in class that the area of a triangle is half the area of a rectangle. So you can see here I'm extending my triangle to actually become a rectangle. And you can see that I have 2 equivalent triangles that have made up my rectangle. So in other words, a triangle is going to be half the area of a rectangle as long as that rectangle has the same base and height. So to find the area of this triangle, I'm going to multiply 6.5 and 7 together and divide by 2 to get half of the area of that rectangle. In this case, that means area is 1/2 times 7 times 6. Now I'm going to go ahead and multiply my 1/2 by 7 because I know that half of 7 is 3.5. And I can multiply my 3.5 by 6. So 5 times 6 is going to give me 30. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 3 more is 21. And then when I put my decimal point in there, I have 0.0. So my area is 21 square centimeters. The perimeter is simply adding up all of our sides together. So that's 7 and 10 and 6.5. When I add 7 and 6.5 together, I get 13.5. Plus 10 more is 23.5. So my perimeter is 23.5 centimeters. All right, now the area of the second triangle here is really, this is trying to throw us off because we're looking at a sideways triangle. If you look at this dashed line down the middle and this angle right here, this is indicating a right angle. In other words, what they did was they took the triangle and tipped it sideways just to kind of throw us off. So try to think of this, and you can turn your paper on its side if you need to. Think of the 6 as being the base, and that would mean the 13 being vertical straight through the middle of the triangle is our height, okay? And we know that this is our height because of this right angle telling us that that this is going to be our height. So the area of this triangle is going to be half of 6 times 13. In other words, 1/2 times 6 times 13. So I know half of 6 is 3. So in other words, my area then must be 13 times 3. And when I multiply that together, I'm going to get 39. So the area is 39 square feet. Perimeter is all the sides added together. So for this triangle, it is going to be 6, 7, and 15. So I can add 7 and 15 together to get 32. And when I add 6 to that, I'm going to get 38. So my perimeter is 38 square feet. Now I added these in my head, and you certainly do not have to do that if you don't feel comfortable with it. So if you'd like, then go ahead and work it out on paper and see if you get the same answer. Alright, so before we get to the area of a parallelogram, I really wanted to go into the formula and how and why it would be the same as a rectangle, because you'll notice that here with this formula that it is in fact the same as a rectangle. So a parallelogram, remember, is a quadrilateral, just like a rectangle, where the top and bottom are equivalent to each other, and the left and right sides are equivalent to one another as well, but not necessarily to the top and bottom. The other key part of a parallelogram is that the angles are not necessarily 90-degree angles. So before we look at this example, I wanted to show you all an example or where this formula really comes from. So if you want to draw this at the bottom of your paper on the back side, that would be helpful. So this parallelogram that we're looking at here, okay, is kind of like a rectangle that has been just sort of knocked over sideways a little bit. Now, if you look at it, we can imagine this side here as being like a rectangle that's sort of been cut off, okay? And if you imagine cutting this thing off and moving it over to this side and tacking it onto the end right here, then what we would have would be a rectangle. So the area, notice that we haven't changed this, we haven't gotten rid of anything, we just moved it around. So the area of this figure is still the same, whether we've transitioned it into being a rectangle or whether we have left it as a parallelogram. So really, because we've moved it and we haven't changed it at all, the formula is still going to be the same, base times height. So for this example, our base is 5.4 and our height is 3.9. So we can find the area by multiplying 5.4 and 3.9 together. So 4 times 9 is going to give me 36. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 3 is 48. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16. And when I add all that together, I will have 21.06. Notice that my decimal point has to move 2 places at the bottom because there were 1 place in the first number, 1 place in the second number, which is going to give me 2 at the bottom. So my area is 21.06 meters squared. My perimeter is all the sides added up together. So that's going to be 5.4 times 2 plus 4.6 times 2. Notice that here we've switched to using the other side length because this is not a 90-degree angle. So to find the perimeter, which is the distance around the outside, then we need to use the actual side length here as opposed to the vertical height. So our perimeter is going to be 10.8 plus 4.6 times 2, which is going to be 9.2. And when I add those together, 10.8 and 9.2 is going to give me 20. So my perimeter is 20 square meters. Alright, so now we'll talk about how to find the area of irregular polygons. An irregular polygon is often called a composite figure, and in this case we could definitely call it a composite figure because it looks like it could be made up of 2 rectangles that have sort of been stuck together. We could break it down this way and look at what appears to be a square and a long rectangle, or we could think of it a little bit differently and draw our line down here to be a tall and skinny rectangle connected to a short and long rectangle. So depending on how you want to do it, you can get the same answer either way, so it really doesn't matter. But I'm going to leave it like this and see what we get by working this out. So in order to distinctly separate these, we need to make sure that we are considering these as 2 totally separate rectangles. This one has the dimensions of 2 by 4, and because we're using this as 2, then we need to consider this as the remainder of what adds up to give me 9, because the whole bottom is 9. If this is 2, then that means that this other piece here must be 7. So to find the area of this, then I need to do 7 times 1. And to find the area of this one, I need to do 4 times 2. And 4 times 2 is going to give me 8. 7 times 1 is going to give me 7. So the area is going to be 8 plus 7, which is going to give me 15. And that'll be 15 square feet. The perimeter is the distance all the way around the outside of the object. To do that, we really need to think about some of the side lengths that are not given to us. So for instance, right here, this side length must be 7. And this side length over here, knowing that this whole thing is 4 and this is 1, this must be 3. And I know that it doesn't look that way because this drawing is a little bit off of the scale. It really is not drawn to scale at all. But we really have to pay attention to the numbers here. And the numbers tell us that that has to be 3. So when I find the perimeter, I'm going to add all of the side lengths together. So perimeter is going to be 9 plus 1 plus 7 plus 3 plus 2 plus 4. So I'm going to work my way through that. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 7 is 17, plus 3, plus 2, plus 4. 17 plus 3 is 20. 20 plus 2 is 22, plus 4 is 26. So my perimeter is 26 feet. Now make sure as you guys are writing these out in your notes, I know that mine are sort of scattered, please make sure that you include all of this being written down, not just the answer. Alright, thanks for sticking with me so far. I know this is a long one. We have one more thing that I'm going to add. I know this is not in your notes handout, but if you can stick it on the bottom or add a note sheet to it and staple it, please do so. We need to talk about how to find the area of a trapezoid. Now, a trapezoid is another quadrilateral that has a special formula. This is probably the most challenging to memorize, but once you get a hang of it, it's really not too bad. So the area of a trapezoid is 1/2 times the sum of base 1 and base 2. And I know it's weird we call them base 1 and base 2, but base 1 is the bottom, base 2 is the top, or you could call them the other way around, base 1 being the top and base 2 being the bottom is fine. And all of that has to get multiplied by the height. And again, we're talking about vertical height here, so that's the straight up and down that's indicated by this 90-degree angle right here. All right, so for this example, we're going to plug in all of the answers, all the numbers that were given, and we're going to try to find the area of this trapezoid. So the area is equal to 1/2 times base 1, which is 29, plus base 2, which is 13, and all that has to get multiplied by the height, which is 15. All right, now let's go ahead and add these two together before we do anything else, because the order of operations says we must first take care of what is in parentheses. So 29 and 13, when you add them together, 9 and 3 is 12, and that's going to give me 4. So area is equal to 1/2 times 42 times 15. Now to make my numbers a little bit smaller, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this 1/2 right away. This half of 42 is going to give me 21. So area is equal to 21 times 15. And then I can go ahead and work that out down here. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Put my 0 in as a placeholder. It's a 1, and then there's going to be a 2. And so my answer, the area of this trapezoid, is 315 square units. All right, thanks for your patience, everyone. I hope that you have taken some very detailed notes and are going to be ready for what we're going to be doing tomorrow.